What's poppin', y'all? 21 Savage is riding the high horse right now. He currently has the most popular hip-hop album out with great reception, is at the top of his career, set to go on a massive tour, potentially in the near future, and while on Clubhouse, decided to make some comments about Nas that were largely taken out of context by the broader media, although I somewhat throw blame on the fans who just read a headline and assumed 21 Savage's intentions, or his whole argument without any context. I'll play the clip for you guys right now, and we'll dive into it.
What y'all saying relevant though? I don't feel like he's relevant. I just feel like
None of them are relevant.
Man,
I don't feel like
Coogee
Nas is
Outkast,
relevant.
Outkast.
Coogee Rap and
You got
Kane dropped the
Outkast.
project, and that shit was ass.
Hold on. Who said none of them are
One
relevant?
mic, one mic, one mic,
Nas not
please. One
relevant,
mic,
21?
please. No,
That's
no,
not what he
no,
said.
One mic,
no,
one mic.
no.
No, he's not. He's not relevant. He just has a
Yeah, I'll be right
loyal
back,
ass
y'all.
fan base.
Thank
He
you.
just has a loyal fan base and he still make good ass music. But
They don't
like
have a core fan
relevant,
base, bro.
what?
Immediately, the response from people I saw was just jumping more on an opportunity to knock 21 Savage down and hate on him as opposed to addressing his point, which was not at all disrespectful in the slightest. So we're going to do what nobody else really wanted to do and address it fairly. My point and thoughts are that I disagree with 21 Savage for a couple of different reasons. I think 21 was interpreted as saying irrelevant as opposed to not relevant, which perhaps can be synonymous, but I interpret them in different ways and I think others do. So I won't call this a misinterpretation by the general public. Irrelevant for me is someone that nobody's checking for. Not to bag on him, but Lil Xan is irrelevant. He doesn't even really have fans to check for him or his music anymore. However, Lil Pump, I would say, is not relevant. The broader hip-hop general fan base who has known about Lil Pump are not paying attention to what he has going on or what he's releasing. But he is relevant to a crowd of fans that used to listen to him and are still interested in seeing what he puts out. Those are two simple distinctions. But regardless, let's attack the relevant point from the way everyone else is coming at it. One of those people being DJ Vlad, who didn't completely voice his opinion but lent 21 Savage a bit of a hand and offered a somewhat fair interpretation.
All right, here we go. So 21 Savage recently ruffled some feathers about his comments saying that Nas isn't relevant. He just has a loyal fan base and makes good music. So a lot of people were upset about this, but let's take a look at what's actually happening. So this is the Spotify top 50 right now. Let's take a look at what's on this list. Of course, you got Her Loss, Drake and 21 Savage, number one. You got Taylor Swift, Steve Lacy, Sam Smith, more Taylor Swift, more Her Loss, more Taylor Swift, Lil Uzi Vert's new song, Jimmy Cooks, Harry Styles, more Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Drake and 21 Savage again, Bad Bunny, of course, SZA's new song, more Taylor Swift, more Drake and 21 Savage, more Bad Bunny, Steve Lacy, Future and Drake, One Republic, Her Loss Again, Megan Trainor, Chris Brown's song, Steven Sanchez. This is the top 50, as you could see. Now, Nas just dropped his new album, Kings Disease 3, solid album, solid beats, shout out to Hit Boy. But as you could see that none of the songs are actually on the top 50 on Spotify. And it's a brand new album. Usually when an album drops, that's when it's getting the most views. That's why most people focus on first week sales. As you can see, nowhere on the top 50. So I think that this is 21 Savage's point, and I think there's a validity to the point. Could have been said a little bit differently, but ultimately, none of the songs are on the charts. And that's what I think he's talking about, relevancy. Shout out to Nas, shout out to Hit Boy. Incredible artists, have dropped classic music, but it's very easy to have someone jump on you when you make a statement like that, but I feel that there is a certain level of truth in it.
There are a couple of issues with this, though. The first being that King's Disease 3 had no lead single that they were promoting. This top 50 chart is majority singles. The reason why Rich Flex is even on there is because that album is so huge and it's the first track on there, so it's getting the most plays. Same for Taylor Swift. There are barely any rappers other than 21 Savage, Drake, and Lil Uzi Vert on this top 50. And the sales for King's Disease 3 were projected to be 27.5K first week for Nas and Hit Boy, with 8K pure copies. And Glorilla set to outsell them narrowly, although that is subject to change, with 28K first week and 5.5K pure copies, which her pure sales are looking a little bit assisted. But there's more to contextualize there. That isn't relevant to this video. My response to all this was on Twitter, which you should follow me at @TheMindOfHY, where I said, Glorilla is arguably one of the most quote-unquote relevant rappers right now with a hit song, more than one. So if Nas is selling the same as her, with no promo, nor hit song, then he's clearly relevant. This adds up to me. If I ask anyone right now that listens to hip-hop if Glorilla is relevant, even if they don't listen to her music, they're going to say yes. All of them. They're going to say, yeah, I've heard her, there's been talks about her, etc. And if she is relevant, with 2 hit songs, as a matter of fact, that have been building up for months now, and Nas is selling the same amount she is, then wouldn't that make Nas still relevant? I see that as a hell yeah, Nas is still relevant. Given that if we do what Vlad did, except look at the albums charts on Apple Music instead of the Spotify Top 50 Songs chart, we can see, and this is for the US, we can see that King's Disease 3 is number 4, trailing only behind Drake and 21 Savage, Taylor Swift, and Lil Baby, 3 of which we would call superstars. Disregarding 21 Savage, he's not a superstar. And Glorilla's album is at number 6, behind Nas and behind Bad Bunny's album. So even with consumption numbers, we can see that Nas is beating her on Apple Music with no hit song and barely any promotion. This is where we have to ask 21 Savage, what does he mean by relevant? I just showed clear evidence by nearly every observable metric that Nas is as relevant, if not more relevant, than Glorilla currently is. And more than that, let's keep in mind that this is 28 years. 28 years after Nas' debut album Illmatic in 1994. Will we be concerned with 21 Savage's music in just 10 years? Not the music he's released, but what he would be releasing in the future. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But if Nas just had his own core fan base and was relevant and irrelevant or not relevant, he'd not be doing the numbers that he's doing with this album. If LL Cool J drops an album, he's not doing these numbers. If Ice Cube drops an album, he isn't doing anywhere close to these numbers. I would know. You should know. He dropped an album maybe 2-3 years ago. Hell, if any individual, not collective, from Wu-Tang dropped an album, they wouldn't be doing anywhere close to these numbers. Which should make the point that Nas is clearly relevant in the modern day. And to further it even more, the fact that 21 Savage is not only aware of this drop, but having a conversation about it, and it being spread throughout the hip-hop world, shows that Nas is clearly still relevant. Perhaps this could have been said about Nas in 2015 to 2017, but ever since he started working with Hit Boy on this series and the other projects he's released in the interim, he's most definitely as relevant as a rapper without mainstream hit songs on Billboard can possibly be. 21 Savage responded to some of the criticism and some of it outright hate on Twitter, saying, I would never disrespect Nas or any legend who paved the way for me. Y'all be trying to take stuff and run with it. Which he is right. He didn't disrespect him, and they did run with it. But that's to be expected. It made for great promo for both of their albums. I do disagree with all the fans that take not relevant as an insult. It's just a fact. Although it wasn't a fact in this specific instance. Big Daddy Kane is not relevant. But when was the last time he released music? Snoop Dogg is not relevant, musically, even though he's arguably the most recognizable and relevant rapper brand and name-wise. That isn't disrespectful because Snoop Dogg has released 5 albums this year. Yes, 5. And how many of them had much of a conversation around them at all? Or sold anywhere remotely close to even half of what Nas is selling? Sure, they accumulated some streams, a good amount actually, because the fans of Snoop Dogg were going to listen to it. But that's an example where you can say someone is not relevant and it not be disrespectful. I think there's a level of sensitivity that has risen over time, justifiably so, within hip-hop, that the wrath just got unleashed on 21 Savage because the majority of the time someone is referencing hip-hop's legends. In this type of conversation, they are dismissive and slightly disrespectful. But that was not the case with 21 Savage. He even acknowledged Nas is still making great music, but that doesn't make his statement any less wrong. Disrespectful? No, not in the slightest. Incorrect? Yes, absolutely. And one of the questions that I have to ask as well is impact. If these numbers don't justify whether Nas is relevant, and him being played in clubs or specific party settings dictates that, how important is that 10, 15 years from now? Because there are plenty of artists that make this type of music, but do we remember them? Do they leave a lasting impact on the listener? And the listener can say, man, I'm not trying to hear all that. I'm just trying to hear club music or strip club music. And they'll say that. But the music that they remember in 10, 15 years is the music that touched them in some sort of way. And largely, that is not the club music. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. What does it mean to be relevant? And is Nas relevant? Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for watching. Peace.